Hey guys, I'm Chris Buck, and today I'm going to be taking a look at the Focusrite Scarlett and the role it plays in my making music. Now, to be honest, I've been using a Focusrite Scarlett for pretty much as long as I can remember ever doing any level of home recording. I had a first generation Scarlett as a present from my parents way back in 2012 and used that on all of my early YouTube videos as well as any other kind of bits and pieces of recording I was doing around that time. It went absolutely everywhere with me until I misplaced it somewhere along the way. Quickly replaced it with a second generation Scarlett in early 2017, and it's that interface which has been at the heart of pretty much every episode of Friday Fretworks that I've ever made. Again, it goes absolutely everywhere with me, including on tour. When we first started getting the rough mixes through of Cardinal Black's album, if there were any parts which we thought would, be better served redoing or anything that was kind of clearly missing, it was recorded using the Scarlett. Guitar parts in hotel rooms or dressing rooms, even vocal overdubs in the back of a van parked outside a hotel room in Leeds. Again, it goes absolutely everywhere with me, and its missing volume knob is very much testament to a life hard lived. Fast forward a few years, and Focusrite have just introduced the fourth generation Scarlett, and very kindly asked me if I'd be interested in taking part in a video series outlining the role it plays in various parts of the production process. Now for this, I'm going to be collaborating with Cara, a singer-songwriter and producer from the US, and Michael Wynn, an audio engineer from Scotland. For my part, I'm going to be writing the basis of a track, keeping it simple, a verse and a chorus, before sending it over to Cara to write some lyrics and melody, before it then gets sent on to Michael for the final mix and master. Now for this, we're going to be using, of course, the Scarlett, as well as any software included when you get the Scarlett in the Hitmaker expansion pack. For my part, that's going to be the Softtube Marshall Silver Jubilee plugin. But before we get to any of that fun stuff, we of course going to need a song. Now, if there's any occasions where I find myself needing an idea or needing some inspiration pretty quickly, first thing I will do is go back to the voice notes in my phone. I'm constantly recording ideas, melodies, chord progressions, etc. in my phone, and lo and behold, I found this from a few months back, which was an idea that I liked but never really kind of had any grand plans for. Certainly didn't feel like the type of vibe that would ever be a Cardinal Black track, and might serve as a useful Friday Fretworks backing track at some point. But as much as I liked its groove and its energy and the kind of vibe generally about it, the thing that really caught my attention in regard to this project was its simplicity. Of course, when you're just writing a verse and a chorus, as this project necessitates, you don't really want to try to introduce too many musical ideas in a short time frame, but there is still time for a turnaround and a bridge leading into the chorus. I sent it over to everyone involved in the project to check that they were happy with it as a general vibe, and upon hearing back that they were, set about working on it. Tapped out the BPM of that original demo and rounded down very slightly, came out at 75 BPM. So using some drum loops and some percussion, set about creating a rhythm track and then adding a bass part. Now, of course, I'm not a bass player. This is far from my forte, but I like to think that I spend enough time in studios and around great bass players that I can kind of approximate what someone more talented than myself would put down. For this, I use my Fender Bass 6 running directly into the Scarlett, using Logic as a DAW, and in this case using the amp sims within Logic. As I said, bass playing definitely not my forte, but hopefully this is somewhat passable. Sounds a little bit like this. Next up was the rhythm guitar track. And for this, I was using my Telecaster, again running directly into the Scarlett, this time using the Softtube Marshall Silver Jubilee plugin as an amp sim. But crucially, the one part of the process which really separated it from the bass guitar was using the added air control on the Scarlett. This essentially kind of recreates that EQ curve and added presence of the ISA 110 preamp that you get in Focusrite studio consoles. It adds a subtle top-end sparkle and clarity, which in the guitar's case really helped it sit in the mix. Now, the next part of the process was, admittedly, somewhat out of my wheelhouse. Ordinarily, when it comes to writing guitar parts, it is very much dictated or informed by the lyrics and the melody and the placement of such that often I'm hearing being written around me. But in the case of this track, I was working blind to a degree with no real concept as to what Cara might add at her end, and as such, purposely decided to play it pretty safe. I did briefly toy with the idea of alternating the guitar part or developing the guitar part very slightly on the second turnaround of the verse, something I would probably ordinarily do, but as I said, working blind, I was a little concerned that it might be too much, so ultimately decided to leave that to not only the percussion, which was introduced at that point, but also what would in all likelihood be a slightly different, maybe alternate vocal melody be introduced at that point as well. So concluded that within the context of the track, there probably would be enough things changing, albeit very subtly, to keep that sense of progression within the song. That said, I did kind of play the chorus part slightly differently, played it much more loosely and much more fluid, I guess, a little bit more loosey-goosey with different ad-libs every time. Not only for the kind of development of the dynamic of the track, but to also give the chorus a little bit more of a kind of groovy feel, I guess, as the drums and everything else does remain fairly static throughout the track. Last but not least, we of course have the guitar solo. Again, it's not really a solo in the traditional sense. Again, working blind, wanting to play it a little bit safe as to not kind of muddy the waters or have too much going on within the track at that point without really knowing what was likely to come next. So I worked around the theme of a more melodic development than traditional solo, although that said, there are still a couple of runs in it here and there. The idea being, with this type of session, to give the producer or give the mix engineer a little bit of scope, give them a little bit of choice of stuff they can either maybe duplicate or replicate later in the track, or maybe just cherry pick the bits that they like and drop other parts out. I'll be intrigued to see how it sounds in the final mix, but for the time being, when it left me, this is how it sounded. And there you have it. So at this point now that I pass it over to Cara in the US, and having heard what she does, I'm really excited to hear it take shape. She's got a great voice and a great sense of melody, so I'm really looking forward to hearing what she can come up with. Likewise, Michael is a superb audio engineer, so I'm really excited to hear how the track sounds once it is mixed and mastered. Just want to give a quick shout out to Focusrite as well for asking me to be a part of this video series. Come to think of it, I've been using the Scarlett for over a decade, so it really has been an integral part of my process for a very long time now. I thought it'd be cool to highlight that. I'm going to play you out now with the track, how it sounds, at least at the point in which it left me. But of course, you can head over to Cara's and Michael's YouTube channels to hear how that process continues. As ever, I'm Chris Buck. Thank you very much for watching. I shall see you soon.